afternoon. Welcome to today's edition of the Coal Scene. I'm Chris Hamilton, and I'll be your host for the next half hour. We have an exciting program in store for you today. We are on site at a recent Coal Forum meeting that's focusing on coal exports and what our current quantity of exports means to the state and the state's economy. It's no secret West Virginia has been a leader in coal exports over the past several decades, today accounting for close to 50% of the U.S. total of exported coal that leaves the country's borders. It's somewhat of a silver lining today, too, amidst all the gloom and doom that the industry is facing. Around the state, we're seeing layoffs, we're seeing slowdowns based on a lot of uneven policy coming out of Washington, D.C. As I indicated, coal exports provides us with optimism. As coal markets expand, as coal use expands around the globe, plenty of opportunity abounds for West Virginia's coal industry to capitalize on those marketing opportunities. But we're going to have to be competitive, and we're going to have to remain viable within those world markets. Countries like Venezuela and Colombia and elsewhere around the globe are also competing for those same markets. And as we'll find, we have some inherent obstacles and challenges. We have a diminishing reserve base here within the state that provides a lot of technological and geological challenges. And the countries we're competing with on the global market don't have a lot of the same restrictions and requirements that we do here. And some of those countries even rely on child labor to create some other uneven situations. We have a panel of experts here today. The governor is going to be addressing the forum. We hope that you find it informative. You're going to hear from all these experts here over the next half hour.
Well, as you know, I come from coal country, from Logan County, and you know, it has been our heritage, especially in southern West Virginia, certain parts of northern West Virginia, you know, that has been one of the main sources of jobs over the years. That's been one of our biggest tax producers, coming from the coal industry through severance tax each year. So it's been one of those things that, you know, young people growing up for many years knew that's, you know, they would go into the mines and work. So it has been part of our heritage, and I think will continue to be.
How important is it for people to understand just how important it has meant for West Virginia throughout the years? I think especially some of the young school kids don't really understand about that.
Well, yeah, when you talk to coal miners, you talk to some very proud men and women, and you know, that's their job, that's what they like to do. You know, it's not cut out for everyone, but we here in West Virginia have been able to adapt to it, you know, to go underground every day, and that's how they provide for their family. And as I've mentioned many times, I think a lot of times the decisions made in an office in Washington about changing the way we mine coal, stop using coal, but they never look at the economic impact. They never look at those faces behind, you know, the coal and who's producing it, or see the tears in a wife's eye when a coal miner comes home and says, "Honey, I've lost my job. You know, we're not going to be able to take a vacation. We're not going to be able to get that new car next year." You know, and those are, you know, real people out there. Their jobs that we're talking about a lot of times when we talk about stopping coal mining in West Virginia. So, you know, it not only affects coal companies, it affects miners, their families, ancillary businesses around. It affects governments, you know, state government in particular, but also county and local governments, you know, with our budgets, and it affects the services that we can provide for people. So, you know, a lot of times I think decisions are made in a vacuum, and the big picture is not always looked at.
Governor, we're going to let you kind of step to the plate and talk about your frustrations about DC a little bit, but first off, we're starting a new fiscal year in West Virginia as of July 1st.
Right.
Let's get back to the importance of coal to you and your staff making sure that budget is balanced.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are an energy state, and I'm very proud of that. And that's a whole array of energy. It's not just coal, but it's natural gas, it's wind, hydro. But anyhow, coal has really been the backbone of our severance taxes in West Virginia. So, it's really frustrating, when our economy is being attacked, and that's really what it amounts to in West Virginia. Because of the layoffs in the mining industry this year, the budget I presented and the legislature passed had to be reduced by 7.5%. Obviously, that's going to affect some services for the people of West Virginia. I'm asking our state workers to do more with less, but we can't continue to be able to cut and still provide the same level of services that the people of West Virginia has come to depend on.
Okay, here's a chance. You're stepping up to the plate. Every day when you have your staff meetings and everything, this frustration has to come out with what's going on in DC as it pertains to the control of the coal industry, their lack of understanding. I'm going to throw you the pitch. It's coming at you. How frustrated are you?
Well, I'm real frustrated, and I think the governors of other coal-producing states are also frustrated. We want to do everything we can to have a clean environment. And, that's what this whole thing is based upon. And if you've lived in West Virginia for 40 or 50 years, you've watched how much we've cleaned up our streams. We've put scrubbers on our power plants at costs of billions of dollars, to make sure that we can still offer people affordable electric power when and where they need it. And it's frustrating to say that you've got to go in a year or so and close down these power plants. I'm not sure where all that power is going to come from. We're not seeing new power plants built around this country. And we've been able to supply not only West Virginia and our families and businesses low-cost power, but all across the country we've shipped our power. And the country is dependent upon it. When that cheap source of electric is no longer available, people's going to have to dig deeper in their pockets. And it's not only here, it's going to be across this country. So, I'm not afraid of change and, trying to do what we can to clean up our environment, but I think we need to be realistic on how we do it and how quickly we move forward.
On a positive side, coal exports.
Right.
And the sale of West Virginia coal overseas to overseas markets. You spoke about that today in the forum. How important is that for the industry to maintain the level that we're accustomed to?
Well, it's very important, and most of our overseas sales are metallurgical coal, and basically used to make steel, and that increased between 2011 and 2012 by over 40%. Of all the coal exported around this country, West Virginia exports 49% of the coal. So, it's very important to our economy. Our exports are, I'm very proud of the fact that our exports overall increased last year by about 25%, but most of that came from the export of coal. And we're shipping it, our biggest increases went to China, Japan. India is very interested, and they buy nearly $700 million worth of coal a year. So it's huge to our economy, the sales we have. As was mentioned by another speaker at the forum today, there are those countries that are just now getting electricity into their homes. So the demand for electricity is going to go up, and the demand for coal is going to go up. The frustrating part is we're having to fight with Washington to make sure that we can produce this coal to be able to export around the world.
Seems to be the common denominator of the frustration with DC, but you've spoke about that. Final question.
Okay.
Governor of West Virginia, how often do you speak to the governor of Kentucky, the governor of Ohio, the governor of Pennsylvania, other coal-producing states? How uniform of a voice are you when you are speaking for the industry to Capitol Hill?
The other coal-producing states governors and I are usually together at a national governors conference or at a DGA or one of the regional conferences on a regular basis throughout the year. And I can tell you that there's only about 7 or 8 states that actually produce a lot of coal. So those governors, we do all get together and talk about how we can speak as a united front for coal. However, you got the other 43 states that they don't mind using the electricity made from coal, but it's not an issue in their state like it is for us coal-producing governors. So, that's the frustrating part. We do have a voice, so we're united when we talk about the production of coal. However, we have a very small number.
The bigger numbers come from countries like India and China, who've been very large importers of West Virginia coal. India also has operations based in West Virginia that add to those numbers as well. Well, one of the interesting facts to look at it when you dig a little bit deeper is the import of our coal by European nations. European nations have to buy carbon credits in order to sell, or in order to make electricity from fossil fuels. Carbon credits now are relatively low priced in Europe. We also have high natural gas prices. Europe receives their natural gas from Russia. Those two things, low carbon credits and high natural gas prices, have led to a significant increase in demand from European nations for the import of West Virginia coal.
With that in mind, I noticed in one of your charts that the Netherlands was the leading importer of West Virginia coal. That took me by surprise.
Sure, it is ironic. Netherlands has been one of the leaders in climate change response advocacy, but the Netherlands is also home to a lot of shipping ports. So while the number is large, a lot of that coal would not end up being used there.
Where are the opportunities? And how are these opportunities being looked at by the coal companies in West Virginia? And along those lines, how are they getting the word out? Are they meeting with the countries that you mentioned? Where are the opportunities?
Sure, we have a tremendous asset in West Virginia in our metallurgical coal. In order to make steel, you have to have coal that's termed agglomerating. You have to have coal that brings together the iron to make steel. And a lot of that coal comes from our state. So that has always been kind of the rock solid component of our coal exports. What we're seeing now is exporting our coal more as fuel coal as well.
Where do you see the opportunities and growth?
Well, I see generally an appreciation of coal. I mean, we have a tremendous resource in West Virginia. We recognize it. European nations recognize it. Hopefully that appreciation is growing.
Is the coal that's still underground, is it the type of coal that it is needed worldwide?
Well, sure, the met coal. I mean, the met coal, it could be priced at a couple $100s a ton. So, I mean, it's quite different than the fuel coal that's priced at $50 to $60 a ton.
You were mentioning the price and the extraction of natural gas in West Virginia and the price of that natural resource right now. In layman's terms, what is that all meaning to the coal industry, and how can people understand that?
Well, natural gas does compete with coal in the electric utility sector. Okay, natural gas has handling costs. Coal has handling costs that natural gas does not. It takes a differential in the price of natural gas and coal on a BTU basis to get the utility sector excited about using coal instead of natural gas. And that differential is returning to the market. I mean, yesterday the price of natural gas at the wellhead was $3.72. At the low point, I think natural gas was priced at $1.90. So while $3.72 is still relatively inexpensive for natural gas, from an economic comparison with coal is certainly a lot better than $1.90.
Final question, sitting behind your desk at the Department of Energy under the dome in Charleston, what's your gut feeling where we are and where the coal industry can move to?
But the coal industry can play a larger role in our economy. Coal industry should play a larger role. We have some serious challenges coming out of DC regarding the environmental side. I mean, when you look at the proposal for new coal plants at 1,000 pounds of CO2 per megawatt hour, right now we do not have what are called best available control technologies to get the CO2 out of the waste stream and put that and compress it and put it underground. Roughly 20% of what comes out of the stack is CO2. The most expensive part of carbon capture and sequestration is how to get that 20% CO2 out of that waste stream.
I think West Virginia will be able to benefit. West Virginia has some of the best quality metallurgical coal in the world, and I think the U.S. will continue to participate in that market, particularly in the Atlantic market, which is a natural market for U.S. East Coast exported coal. Again, that'll be Europe and South America.
We hear a lot of the met coal being, what exactly makes that coal so special? How is it used? You drive the interstates in West Virginia, you see the power plants, you hear about steam coal. Why is this met coal so important?
Yeah, maybe the difference is any coal can be used as thermal coal, but there's only certain coals that have a particular characteristic that can be used for met coal. And basically what it does is when you put these types of coals into a coke battery, and I won't get into the technical detail of a coke battery, but they turn into what is called coke. And coke is a form of carbon, and then that carbon is used in a blast furnace to help make steel. And thermal coals don't have that particular characteristic.
Where is this coal located in West Virginia? I was hearing a lot of discussion of northern West Virginia coal, southern West Virginia coal. Is West Virginia just abundant of it?
I would say that most of the met coal today is produced in the southern part of West Virginia.
Is this longwall mining, surface mining coal?
Typically not. You have both, but most of the met coal produced in West Virginia is not longwall mine, it's continuous miner operations.
Okay. Why are we seeing such a growth? It might be a simplistic question, but why are we seeing such a growth in the European markets? And Asian and also in China and those markets?
Yeah. Predominantly the increase has come from the Asia market. The European market is relatively stable at the moment, but we're seeing a big increase in the Asian market. And the reason we're seeing the U.S. participate to a larger degree today than it did in the past is that you've had this increase in demand for steel around the world. You've had an increased demand for metallurgical coal. And metallurgical coal is not produced everywhere in the world. The primary suppliers of metallurgical coal are Australia, followed by the U.S., and then followed by Canada. Now you have new sources coming in which will compete, but at the moment those are the three major suppliers of metallurgical coal. Whereas thermal coal has to compete from many different sources. Thermal coal comes from the U.S., Australia, Canada, South Africa, Venezuela, Colombia, Indonesia, whereas metallurgical coal has a particular characteristic that's not widely available around the world.
We're hearing growth in the markets, particularly the Asian markets. If you could, for the average public out there that may have never seen a coal mine or understand it, trace a lump of coal for us from a coal mine in West Virginia to a steel production plant in Asia.
Sure, I'd be happy to do it. What normally happens is many of these mines in West Virginia have big loadout facilities, railroad loadout facilities. So the most common way is it moves from the mine to a port by railroad. And there are two major railroads that service West Virginia mines. One is the Norfolk Southern Railroad, the other is the CSX Railroad. On the U.S. East Coast, predominantly in the Hampton Roads area, you have three terminals that handle coal exports. So the coal is railed from the mine to one of these terminals. Each terminal is slightly different on how they handle the coal, whether they have ground storage or whether the rail cars dump directly into a vessel. But one of those two ways, so the coal is either put on ground storage and then retrieved and put into a vessel, or it's direct dump into a vessel. And literally they're just ports where these big Panamax or Cape-size vessels go up against the pier, and then the coal is retrieved. It's put in a loader and it's loaded into these vessels before they sail off to these foreign lands.
So that leads me to the next point. When we think of jobs for the coal industry, we think of that miner on a surface mine or in a longwall, underground, that scenario. There's many more jobs than meets the eyes, and we're talking about somebody who is dependent on, their job's dependent in Hampton Roads, Virginia, on the mine, on coal that is mined out of West Virginia.
That's exactly right, and I won't reference, you know, what happens before the coal is mined, because obviously there are a lot of jobs that are impacted what happens before. But if you're looking at just strictly exports, you're right. You have the railroads that are involved. You have railroad employees. You have port employees. In addition to port employees, not only at the terminals, you have other auxiliary services. All the coal that's exported has to be analyzed, so that coal has to be sampled, so samples are collected. The coal is sent to laboratories to be analyzed, because you're paid on the analysis based on the quality that's put into those vessels. You have weights, you know, the coal has to be weighed. You have surveyors that survey the vessels. You have document preparation. You know, when you're exporting coal from the United States, everything has to go through it all has to be recorded and to the government, and also not only the U.S. government, but the governments in which that coal is going to be exported to. So again, you have people who prepare documentation to make sure that all the regulations are followed and all the paperwork is performed. So you're absolutely correct. There's a number of jobs that are directly related to that coal being exported.
Final question. Your company, what is your all's, when you're around four walls, what is your all's gut feeling about where we are today and where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years from now?
We're optimistic. You know, I guess we need to be, and we've been in the business a long time, and as we mentioned, or as I mentioned today, there are cycles in this business, and at the moment we happen to be on a down cycle. But we believe that supply and demand will rebalance itself, and that the U.S. will continue to participate in a meaningful way over the next 5 years. So again, we're optimistic that over the next 5 years that we'll continue to participate.
Our company is mostly in met coal, and what I wanted the audience to understand was all the potential that we have in West Virginia for participating in this export market. With, as the world needs more met coal, we can supply it. We have excellent quality coal in West Virginia. We have great coal miners to mine it. We need to work together to make sure we participate in this ramping up of the export tonnage.
Now, we've got the coal in West Virginia, we've got the miners in West Virginia, but you made mention to the frustration of companies like yourselves and other coal companies that want to be able to take advantage of this export market. That right now it doesn't seem like the folks on Capitol Hill want to be able to provide those permits in a timely fashion so that you can get the coal to them. How frustrating is that as a company?
Yeah, government regulation is necessary. That's some tough work, you know, but it doesn't have to be as draconian as it appears to have been here the past little bit. When the regulators set reasonable stretch goals for us to attain to make things better, whether it's health and safety or the environment, coal miners have proven that they've been able to rise to those challenges and make things better. If you stretch it too far, you do that to the detriment of growth, job growth, growth in mining of whether you're talking about met or steam coals in West Virginia, we'll suffer. And I just think there's an overplay, an overreaction. And I don't believe that the current administration likes coal, a carbon-based fuel.
There was a lot of positive talk about that sort of thing. So, as in that there's a market out there for what West Virginia has underground. And you have an administration that is not in favor of the coal process as it may be. How are you making sure that your customers overseas know that you're going to be able to provide that coal?
Well, the customers overseas have options. They know that, and they have options from other countries in addition to the United States, in addition to West Virginia. So we have to be competitive. We have a great opportunity in the United States. We're blessed with a lot of coal and a lot of natural gas. Most countries don't have what we have. What we need to do is take advantage of that. We need to use as much as we can domestically to provide low-cost energy to businesses and to homes. And at the same time, we look for opportunities around the world because we've got the resources, we've got the people, we want the job growth. So we need to hit these other countries through our export programs by being cost competitive. And we need a government environment that works with us to make that happen.
How are companies like yours and other coal companies communicating with those companies in Asia? How are you making, I mean, how is the sales force out there making sure that steel plant in China understands that you can deliver what they need?
Yeah, we don't ship a lot of coal, United Coal, to Asia. Most of our market outside of the U.S. is in Western Europe and South America, and that's kind of a natural market for us. But what happens with these emerging economies in Asia and India, they use so much coal, so many of the world's resources. It's this giant sucking sound in the east that's taking all the world's resources, and they're using it. And what's happened recently is Australia has provided, for the most part, what they need in terms of coal. And we've been able to supplement that because there's been not enough supply from Australia. Maybe that's temporary, maybe we can participate longer term as they continue to grow. It's all a matter of economics. But we definitely need to preserve our business in Western Europe, South America, and even with just a little bit of business in Asia, we can still do well in West Virginia.
Very short time left. How optimistic are you for the next 5, 10 years?
Well, the next 1 or 2 years are going to be tough. You have natural gas. I think the coal companies have been their own worst enemies. Every time we see a great market, we snuff it out with an oversupply of coal. That's happened in the past. I think the gas companies are getting a taste of that because there are too many wells, there's too much gas production, and prices for gas, natural gas, are too low. So there needs to be a rationalization of supply on the natural gas side and on the coal production side around the world so that prices stabilize and you get an environment that you can operate in, day out. So long term, I'm very optimistic. That's got to happen. And I think it's going to happen in the natural gas fields too. So West Virginia's in a great place because we have some of the best resources in the world. And when that happens, when it comes back here in a year or two, which I believe it will, we'll be postured just right with some of the best energy sources in the world.
That concludes our program today. I hope that you found it to be